Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the How to Survive podcast.
Unlucky for some, but not for you guys, because this week we're talking about Spectre.
Yeah, Spectre is the new James Bond film. It marks Daniel Craig's fourth performance as James Bond, and it also marks the return of Sam Mendes in the director's chair.
Be warned that this podcast is not going to shy away from spoilers, and obviously this is a very recent film, so and you should definitely see it. It's really, really good. So if you haven't seen Spectre, then you are forewarned that we're going to be talking about spoilers from now.
So let's start off by talking about the film and establish everything we need to know before we go on to how we'd survive.
Yeah.
It's a typical sort of jet-setting, action-packed Bond film, maybe more in the mould of the old Roger Moore films.
Yeah, I think it certainly harks back to those.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of influence with the older sort of style of James Bond films, but I think it's a bit like Skyfall. There's a blend of the two.
Yeah, I think more so in this. So Skyfall kind of felt like a sentimental movie about everything that happened so far, and it's kind of looking back on James Bond's literal life, the character's life, but also like it felt like because it was a celebration of 50 years.
Yeah.
Kind of feels like a celebration of everything, whereas this feels a lot more like a love letter to past Bonds, and there's a lot in it for a Bond fan. It's almost a remake or a reboot of every single James Bond film pre-Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
But it's got elements from all of them, like taken, like whole sort of scenes and motifs taken piecemeal and sort of recreated in a more modern way.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Yeah, it's sort of it's less fun maybe than Skyfall. I think Skyfall had like a sort of, like you said, a sort of celebratory tone almost, because it was, as you say, 50 years of Bond, and I think this is less like that. But I think it is getting more towards the classic Bond film sort of tone all the way through, because obviously with Daniel Craig films they sort of try to reboot Bond and make him sort of Jason Bourne for the new
yeah, exactly.
You know, a Jason Bourne Bond for the new generation. But I think this is again like Skyfall, a sort of balance of all the elements across the whole series, and so it follows directly on from Skyfall as well in terms of its plot, which is relatively unusual for a Bond film.
Well, Quantum of Solace did it as well.
Yeah, with the modern set of the more recent series of Bond films has done it, but obviously over the canon of the whole thing.
Yeah, each one kind of stands as its own movie, and it's implied that they're linked, but then you could watch one without ever having seen the others. Where I think you could watch Spectre or Skyfall or Quantum of Solace, having never seen them, and they would. Well, Quantum of Solace isn't a good film, but you could still watch it as its own film. Yeah, but they do work better as a set.
And I think this film is the one that, through which they're trying to tie up all of the previous three Daniel Craig films. So it opens with Bond. It opens, in fact, with a really ambitious tracking shot, which is probably not exactly a single take, but you know, certainly it gives that feel. And it's the Day of the Dead in Mexico, and they go through the crowd. You're following a man dressed in a sort of skeleton costume, and with a beautiful woman. You go up to a hotel room. Surprise, surprise! It's James Bond in an impeccable suit, as always, and he's there to assassinate a terrorist, a member of the organisation Spectre. It turns out, and he's doing this at the behest of M. It was her sort of dying wish. Yeah,
they play out like a video will that only Bond has access to, because you know they had that special sort of Bond.
Yeah. So in classic fashion, things don't go quite to plan in Mexico, and Bond ends up causing like a massive devastation.
Yeah, I can't believe no one died in that. I mean, he knocks over a building, and then he's throwing people out of helicopters.
Yeah. Well, they're dead, obviously.
Yeah, but they must have landed on something.
Yeah.
Or someone.
Yeah. They just landed in nice pockets of space in amongst the thousands of people celebrating the festival below.
I have to say that helicopter scene is among, like, I've gone to the cinema before, but there's only a few films that have made me sort of jaw open, like grinning. Like, this is incredible. I think you've seen Super 8. In fact, I know because I went to see it with you some years ago, and that was, I think we saw it in IMAX or certainly big digital. There's that sort of train crash, And I remember that's the same experience. It was just like so overwhelming, and like you just can't believe the spectacle of it.
Yeah, exactly. This is a film that definitely benefits from being seen on the big screen, and as big a screen as you can find.
Yeah, exactly.
As we did. So the assassin tries to escape in a helicopter. Bond gets into the helicopter, and there's a protracted fight scene in the helicopter as it's sort of somersaulting out of control above the city. It's very exciting. It's very cool. So Bond returns to London having stolen a ring off of this assassin. On the ring is embossed a sort of octopus logo.
Yeah.
Or squid logo, I don't know. Octopus logo.
It's an octopus, I think, yeah.
And through his sort of investigation, he goes to the funeral of the assassin as per M's instructions, and sort of gets led to a secret clandestine meeting of Spectre, who obviously is Bond fans. Anyone who knows, a medium level of knowledge about Bond probably will know of Spectre. They were sort of the criminal organisation.
I think the acronym, which they left out of this because it's stupid, but it's the Special Executive for Corruption.
I think it's terrorism, corruption, terrorism, and extortion, or something like that. Revenge and extortion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Special Executive for Corruption, Terrorism, Revenge and Extortion.
Yeah, I mean, they set out their store, really, haven't they?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're not familiar with them, because you maybe haven't seen the old Bonds, think Dr. Evil. Yeah. Because he's basically, his organisation is Spectre.
Yeah, it's the that's the joke, I suppose, isn't it? So at this meeting, Bond witnesses them trying to find a replacement for the man he's killed. Mr. Hinks, played by Dave Bautista, appears and kills the supposed replacement.
First he blinds him by driving his fingernails, which is like sharpened to a point, through his eyeballs, and then he breaks his neck. Yeah, I mean, it kind of seems pointless blinding him because he wasn't really.
It's just to show him as a evil guy. But he's obviously, as it's Dave Bautista, he's a giant of a man. And while this is happening, the shadowy figurehead of the organisation, who's sat at the end of the table in classic style, is there, and he recognises Bond. Says,
"Welcome, James."
Yeah, and Cuckoo as well.
Yeah,
and Bond flees and manages to get away. Meanwhile,
you get in between. By the way, you get probably one of the best car chases I've seen in film.
It's really good. Yeah, it's got everything. It's got like the actual normal chase elements, and then there's the injection of humour. You've got Moneypenny on the phone back home. That's quite funny. And then the little old man in his Fiat bumbling along and all that sort of thing. It's a very, very classic Bond car chase.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's very impressive as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. Meanwhile, back in London, M, the new M, played by Ralph Fiennes, along with Q, Ben Whishaw, and Moneypenny, Naomi Harris, are facing a threat to their jobs in the form of the Joint Security, I don't know.
A new government agency that's been tasked with sort of bringing all the MI6, MI5 and all the things under one umbrella.
Yeah, and with a focus on sort of modern surveillance techniques like drones, drone warfare, all that sort of thing. The figurehead of that operation is C, or Max Denby, played by Andrew Scott.
Yep.
And there's sort of, they're having a political set to, while Bond is sort of on his own going after this organisation. His investigations lead him to Mr. White, the villain from previous Bond films, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace.
Yeah.
Mr. White is dying. As a promise to him, Bond says that he'll keep his daughter safe, Mr. White's daughter safe.
Kind of in exchange for facilitating Mr. White's suicide by giving him a gun.
Yeah. And so he finds Mr. White's daughter. They set off together, and through various clues, they go on their way to the desert near Tangier in Morocco. On the train, they encounter Mr. Hinks once again. Yeah, Dave Bautista. There's a protracted fight scene on the train, which is really good, really exciting. Sort of shades of From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
And finally they arrive at the Spectre lair, where they find the figurehead of the operation, Franz Oberhauser, who, it turns out, is Bond's foster brother. After James's parents died, as is detailed in Skyfall, he was adopted by Hans Oberhauser, who brought him up, taught him a lot of things like skiing, climbing, all those sorts of things. Franz was very jealous and facilitated the murder of his father and faked his own death in the process, and became a man known as Ernst Stavro Blofeld. Who could have seen that coming, Joe? Who?
I mean, it's easy to, in retrospective, we should have all seen it coming.
Yeah, I think it was. I think basically everyone did see it coming. Yeah. But they insisted that he wasn't Blofeld.
Oh, it's more like how obviously this is going to be someone who is facsimile of Blofeld. Whether or not they say this is Blofeld or not was going to be like the question, right? Yeah. Because it could have been
a man who's got a white cat. And,
exactly.
But he does have the white cat.
Yeah.
He also, Bond ends up being tortured by Blofeld in a very nefarious manner. Manages to escape through the use of a gadget watch. First time we've seen that sort of thing in a Daniel Craig Bond film, I'd say. And then the watch explodes and wounds Blofeld somehow. Who knows how? And they escape once again. They go back to London to try and stop the initialization of 9 Eyes, which is the surveillance program that C was trying to start. And it turns out that C is an agent of Blofeld's. He's working for Spectre all along. Who could have seen that coming, Joe? And they, through various means, managed to stop this system coming online, which would have given Spectre access to the combined surveillance of 9 different countries. Blofeld tries to escape. Bond shoots his helicopter down, opts not to kill him. He gets taken in by M. And James drives off into the sunset with Madeline, Mr. White's daughter.
Who they both said I love you, so this is perhaps a happy ending for Bond. If there's never another Bond film, then he's finally found peace.
Yeah, and so that's how the film ends. They drive off into the sunset in the Aston Martin DB5. Yeah, and all is well for the time being, at least.
And the orchestra strikes up. With the classic Bond theme.
Yeah. So Joe, what did you think of Spectre?
Well, I loved it. I've dissected the film in great detail, and here are my thoughts. Do you want good or bad first?
Let's start with good.
Okay, good. There's a lot in it for a Bond fan, which obviously we are, because we're British men aged between like 12 and
40.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like the stuff that they've taken from other movies. We mentioned that earlier. So the train scene, it's impossible not to think of From Russia with Love. There's I personally thought when he lands in his parachute, that's kind of like Thunderball with the jetpack maybe. Racing down the Thames in the speedboat, it's kind of like The World Is Not Enough. Like the screens controlling everything and the mad guy talking in front of them kind of reminded me of Elliot Carver in Tomorrow Never Dies. Then he says like "Hello, Percy" to the cat.
There's loads of little references.
I wonder whether there is a reference to every single one in there. Right. If you're smart enough to look for it.
Sure.
I think the people around the table in the Spectre meeting, they're all kind of reminiscent of, but not all of them. Obviously the German woman is reminiscent of
Klebb.
Yeah,
Rosa Klebb.
Exactly.
From Russia with Love.
Yeah, exactly. But I wasn't really paying attention to what they were talking about. But it wouldn't surprise me if the sort of things they were describing are other
plots.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that would be a nice way to do. So I like that. I like the fact that it does go into that detail, and it doesn't feel too forced. But I'm going to talk about this again in the bad parts, so I'll leave it there for now.
Okay.
What did you think?
I really liked it. I think Bond is probably one of the only film franchises now that really excites the inner child in me, because I grew up watching Bond films and enjoying them a lot, and I think Casino Royale hit at the time when I was wanted something more serious. Obviously Die Another Day was just embarrassing.
It's a PlayStation game.
And then Casino Royale came out, it was gritty, it felt cool, it made Bond cool again. And then I think the Daniel Craig films since then have been good. Skyfall obviously was just, I think, maybe the best Bond film ever.
Yeah, it's a good film away from Bond. It's a very good film just because it's a good film.
Yeah, and I think I enjoyed this in a similar way. I don't necessarily know if it's as good as Skyfall, but I mean, I think we'll talk about this a bit later because I think people are a bit funny when it comes to, you know, comparing James Bond films and things like that.
I think like we just said, Skyfall is a good film on its own, but this film is really, really good. But it kind of uses the whole saga as a crutch. Yeah. I don't know. I'm too familiar with Bond to be able to watch it with the kind of eyes saying, if I didn't know Bond, would this be good? Sure. So I'd have to go and see it with someone else. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. I think it's difficult to know whether or not to criticise it for that. Yeah. Because it is like most films. If they're a sequel, you'd say, yeah, don't go see that if you haven't seen the first one.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like. You wouldn't watch the 24th episode of a TV series and expect to know what was going on. Exactly. But obviously Bond doesn't work. You know, the film series doesn't.
Yeah, they don't quite have their hooks into each other.
No, yeah. But I think you would, if you'd only seen 3 other Bond films and they were Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and Skyfall, then you'd get a lot out of this film from a narrative level. If you've seen 20 something others, like, or if you'd not seen any Daniel Craig ones, you'd probably get a lot out of this one as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the longest Bond film ever. Yeah, but I don't think it outstays its welcome.
No, I mean, every piece of action is never more than 5 minutes away.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and all the action is well paced. Like even the scenes which are conversational or character development, they're good. It's like snappily written.
I mean, all the exposition kind of takes place during a car chase or during a fist fight, or not, but.
Yeah. I think the only, I mean, obviously when Blofeld turns up, there's a lot of exposition there where Bond's tied up. The other scene that I sort of noted was really expositional was directly after the title sequence. Bond is in a meeting with M. Yeah. And to set up the whole C angle, you know, the surveillance program. Yes. Yeah. He's like, as you know, they're trying to shut us down and all that sort of thing. And you're like, well,
I do need to remind you, Bond.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is sort of classic expositional dialogue. Yeah, you know, like the character in, I mean, M is always used for that anyway. Yeah. The character parodying M in Austin Powers is called Basil Exposition. Yeah, yeah. So like, yeah, but I think those sorts of things you can. I guess like I don't want to come across as too much of a Bond fan or like. Somehow I wouldn't be able to watch a Bond film objectively, but I sort of don't care about those things. Like normally in a film I'd be like, oh, it's lazy writing and things. Yeah. But I don't think anyone's...
You've got to get it across somehow, and that particular scene's 30 seconds. Yeah. It doesn't take you out. You're not like I can't watch this anymore.
Yeah. I don't think it's like embarrassing or you know But then maybe I am just blinded by the fact that I really like Bond films.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It's hard to know. The opening sequence in The Day of the Dead in Mexico is amazing. I thought. It's really spectacular. Yeah. And, you know, you've got like 2,000 extras. You've got Bond, you know, you start off at street level. The long tracking shot goes all the way up to the rooftops. You know, whether or not there's actual cuts in there, there probably are. But, you know, that doesn't matter. Like the feeling of it is great. And then, you know, the action's brilliant. The chase through the streets and then the helicopter fight scene with this helicopter somersaulting in the air and stuff. It's so exciting.
I mean, you know Bond's not going to die, but somehow it's still...
It seems like the stakes are high.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot of other people who can get hurt. And you don't know who the person he's fighting is, really. So that's kind of like... You don't necessarily want him to die, because you want to see what happens next. In another sense, the sort of film making of it... you forgive me if I don't use the correct words. A few weeks ago, you taught me a new word in film, which is blocking. Yeah. And ever since then, whenever I watch a movie, I've got it in mind. I've kind of tuned into it now, and there's one. I think it was this scene. So I've only seen it once. So forgive me if it's not. But they're on the train and they're talking, and you're sort of seeing Bond fill the screen, and the camera just tilts just a little bit, and you see Hinks coming up behind him, more or less at a sprint. Yeah. And then you see Bond looking like sees a reflection, and there's. I mean, it must be 1 second from calm to frantic fighting, and. That's like a really clever shot for me.
Yeah. The train fight scene is great because it, like you say, it goes from, I mean, like where everyone else is on the train, I don't know. Yeah. But like, so that's a comment that I've seen on websites and things, the train fight scene is ridiculous. Where are all the other passengers?
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't matter to me.
I wasn't thinking. I wish there were more people.
It's like the feeling that I get watching it isn't dependent on it sticking religiously to sort of a realistic universe.
Yeah.
And like you say, it goes from like a calm conversation scene. So it's a lot like the scene between him and Vesper in Casino Royale, where they're on a train and they have like a back and forth.
Yeah.
It's a lot like that.
Well, probably deliberately.
Exactly, yeah. Because it's the first girl that he sort of falls for.
Yeah.
After Vesper. And as you say, Hinks comes up behind him, like it kicks off this enormous fight scene. And there's no music for like the first
just the sound of bodies hitting the floor, well, his body hitting the floor, going through tables, going through chairs. Yeah, it is very WWE. So Batista was well casted there.
Yeah. Well, we're speaking of wrestling, like we were saying afterwards, Daniel Craig sells the hits so well. Yeah, exactly. Like he looks like he's being beaten up. Like if it's a Roger Moore fight scene, his way of like he'd get hit in the face and then he'd sort of roll his eyes and be like, "Oh, now I am dazed, Roger Moore.
Oh, you really made me angry now."
Yeah. Whereas Daniel Craig feels like he's actually having, actually being beaten up.
Yeah, the crap kicked out of him.
Yeah, it's a bit like Indiana Jones. I always think that Indiana Jones looks like a man who's being beaten.
Interesting you should say that. Interesting that we should mention both Indiana Jones and wrestling, because I've got a good fact for you.
Okay.
So as we say, Dave Batista, the character Mr. Hinks, was he's a former WWE wrestler.
Yeah, famously.
But did you know there have been 4 other wrestlers in Bond villain history? Okay. So Harold Sakata, who was Oddjob, he was a wrestler. I don't know of any merit. Yeah. Pat Roach. Okay. Familiar with the name? So he was in Indiana Jones, all of them. He played the giant Sherpa, the giant German mechanic who gets chopped up by the propeller in Raiders. He was the chief thuggy guard in the Temple of Doom. Right. And he was a Gestapo officer in The Last Crusade. Right. Right. And in Never Say Never Again, he was the assassin sent to kill Bond in the clinic. Okay. Oh yeah. Right. Yeah. And then there's also High Chief Peter Maiva, right, who was in You Only Live Twice. He's the one who gets a statue smashed over his head. Sure. Now, I say the name Peter Maiva, does that mean anything to you? If I said Rocky Maiva, who was his grandson. Right. Do you know who that is? That's The Rock. Dwayne Johnson, okay. Yeah. So his grandfather was a wrestler before him. Okay. And yeah, and then The Rock was one of the people who was considered for Hinks. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. They asked for a sporty, unusual looking person. Yeah. And I think a WWE wrestler pretty much fits the bill. Basically. Yeah. Batista is, when I heard he was cast, like he's not a good actor, right? He's in Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. Yeah. But he's good in that because his lines are pretty like limited. Yeah. But he's actually he does the role perfectly. Yeah. Physically, he's a very imposing presence, and he is very good at acting with his body. Yeah. Like he doesn't have to do much in this. Like sort of flex his muscles a bit, and I think his one word is shit. But it's. Yeah. But I thought he was good. Yeah, and that fight scene between him and Bond on the train is great fun. Again, like you never think Bond's about to die. No. Or well, I don't know. Like maybe you're not thinking that in the scene though either. Like you're not sat there thinking, oh, this is stupid. He's going to survive. Yeah, like because otherwise there's no point in watching. Because he almost throws him out, and you think, well, maybe he's going to end up on like thrown from the train. Yeah, exactly, and then Madeline's in trouble. Yeah. But yeah, it's thrilling, like a really good, like a classic Bond versus big man fight, of which there are many. Yeah, exactly. And after Mr. Hinks, of course, we have to talk about the main villain of the piece, and that is, of course, Christoph Waltz as Franz Oberhauser and then Blofeld. Ernst Stavro Blofeld. So Waltz, I think, is brilliant. Mm-hmm. Well, he was always going to be. Yeah. Like he's playing the same role that we just know him for now. Yeah, exactly. The creepy, but polite, I know what's going on guy. Yeah, like he's creepy but polite, and he's the same as his character in Inglourious Bastards, similar to his character in Django. Yeah. And it's the role that he's I could guess you could say typecast for. Like born to play, I'd say. Yeah. But like he's a great take, I think, on
Blofeld's character.
Yes.
And I like the fact that, like everyone who goes to see that film, when he says he's Blofeld, they'll be like, all right, that's interesting, it's Blofeld, but he's not scarred.
Yeah.
And then obviously Bond is the cause of his scar.
Yeah, that kind of works it all back together.
Yeah.
And I remember we discussed it at length whether or not Blofeld would be in the movie.
Yeah.
Because you said he is obviously Blofeld, and I kind of agreed that the person Oberhauser is representative of the character Blofeld, but whether or not he would be called Blofeld.
Yeah, whether they'd go, whether there would be the scene that is in the film where he says, Franz Oberhauser died, my name is Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was some contention over that, and I kind of thought it would be tacky if they did it, just because it's like, oh, you're just going to pander to us that much. But then it worked really well.
Yeah, I thought the reveal was really well done. It was really, like, watching it in the cinema, I was really excited as it was happening. Like, you see the white cat, and obviously it's clear by that point, he's wearing the Nehru jacket and he's not wearing socks, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Which is like I love it in films where there's a villain and they just give him like one little characteristic to make him that much weirder.
Yeah, right.
And like it's perfectly reasonable for him to not wear socks. He's living in a desert.
He lives in Africa, in a desert. Yeah.
Yeah, but you notice it. You see, Christopher, and it's almost like Bond. Like Bond would never not wear socks. Yeah. Like he wouldn't even consider it.
Yeah, he wears socks to bed.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just love the little elements like that. I like the fact that I know I've read some comment on the internet that suggests that people think that the backstory for them being foster brothers is sort of tacky or anything, which I guess you could argue that it is, because it's making them sort of like Harry Potter and Voldemort, or destined always to be, or like Batman and the Joker, like destined. They're two sides of the same coin.
You could say that, but then you could say that about Silver as well, because that relationship was probably more forced, because it's like, oh, you've never heard of me, but I am the same as you. Yeah. And you're like, well, yeah, I buy it, but then the story of Bond is the story of Bond's foster family is in the novels, so it's there if you cared to go and read it. Not that I did, or you did, or anyone really did, but yeah,
it's not totally out of the blue. But also, I think if you consider the alternative was just going to be he's a man who does a lot of bad things. Yeah, like I like that there's a personal motivation for it, and even more so after he gets scarred, because it's like that's even further reason.
Insult to injury.
I like the scene towards the end in MI6 where they're either side of a bulletproof pane of glass, and it's shot so that the reflection of one another in the glass mirrors onto the other person, which is nice. Like I said, they are two sides of the same coin, but I think that's more interesting than them being just Bond, a man who does good always, and Blofeld, a man who is just a master criminal. Yeah,
who, I mean, at the end of every Bond film, you get him pretty much laying in a ditch, shaking his fist, going, or riding next time, Bond.
Yeah, riding off on a jet ski or whatever. But like, it's better, I think, to have that personal motivation. Yeah, exactly. I feel.
Although I will say, Bond says to him, "Oh, that looks painful," when he sees his like gashed face, and he says, "My wounds will heal, Mr. Bond." So I don't think. You've had your eye burnt out, mate. Let's look like we'll go back.
Yeah, you don't. He's not a doctor. No, he's not Dr. Blofeld. I really like the desert lair. Yeah, it's just I think Bond films, like I was saying earlier, people get hung up about all sorts of things in Bond films. The plot, the dialogue. There might be too much exposition. It might be characters coming and going. I mean, Monica Bellucci is barely used, really. Well, she's in what, like 2 scenes?
Two. Well, one. Then
the funeral scene, and then
immediately afterwards.
Yeah, the villa scene. Yeah, and I mean, she's a great actress.
Well, this is in my bad list, Chris.
Right,
is that she's kind of billed. I mean, I assume there is a promotion cycle around this film. Yeah, and if you were to read something like the Daily Mail, you would be forgiven for thinking that she was the Bond girl, so to speak. Yeah. But she isn't really. It's Lea Seydoux who's the Bond girl, and she has an incredible performance. Yeah. Which, and it's unfair, really, to take away from her performance by making Monica Bellucci.
Yeah. We haven't really talked about Madeline Swan,
No.
Leah Seydoux' character. I think that's really good. I think she was very good.
Yeah, I do.
She was good in the role. I mean, obviously she's not. They sort of make her out to be really capable, and then they don't do a lot with that.
Yeah, that's the thing. It kind of seems to subvert that cliche of
She just the damsel.
I mean, in fact, she says the words, "I'm not going to be the sort of woman that falls into your arms."
Yeah.
But then she is the sort of woman that falls into his arms. And there's that really funny scene. I say funny. It was funny because it was like, oh, the joke's on Bond for once. She, after like Hinks has gone through the windscreen and she gets out of the car and she's like, for Christ's sake, you idiot. And and Bond's like, calm down, you're in shock. And she's, I'm not in shock, you led them to me.
Yeah.
Like,
did you never think that you led? Yeah. She does seem. I think for the first 2/3 of the film that she's in, she does come across as like the foil for Bond. Yeah. And like on an equal sort of footing to him. And then afterwards they sort of drift that away and she becomes someone just to be rescued. Although she does, I quite like that she blows Blofeld up.
Right, yeah.
She's the one who throws there is an understanding between them. She's not right down there with the worst Bond girls in terms of, like being totally incapable and like just screaming and crying and all that. But she's not like to use a very bad example, Jinx in Die Another Day, played by Halle Berry, where she's like Mrs. Bond. Right, yeah. But I think she's an interesting enough character. The ending suggests to some extent that if Daniel Craig comes back, which I have a feeling, maybe it's 50-50, I have a feeling that he will.
I think he will. Money talks after.
Yeah. I hope she comes back as well, and I hope Christoph Waltz comes back because of course
and Sam Mendes. It would kind of be a trilogy, and you could wrap it up there.
Yeah, I think, like you could
compare it with the Dark Knight trilogy. Yeah, because you got Bond Begins in Casino Royale. Mm-hmm. Ignore Quantum of Solace because it was shit. Mm-hmm. Then you've got
Skyfall.
Yeah, which is Dark Knight. Like you can compare those very easily because you've got the Bane figure in Raoul Silver, and you've got Bond who is Batman. Yeah. And the plots of those films of Skyfall and Batman. It's Dark Knight Rises. This one, but with Bane. Yeah. Yeah, it's the Dark Knight Rises. He gets injured and has to recover. Sure. And it's basically the same story.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you hate Skyfall because it just ripped everything off.
Yeah, exactly. It's a copycat, and we've
I
seen
think
it all
came
before.
Out the same year. Didn't it?
Yeah. But you can't argue that it is a very similar theme.
Yeah, but I hope that they all return. At the end of the credits, it says James Bond will return. Yeah. Just in case anyone was thinking they're just going to go. I think we've played our hand.
Yeah, we've milked this for all it's worth.
Yeah. And I'd like for it to be Daniel Craig. I like Daniel Craig. I think he's possibly my favourite Bond, and I think the reason for that is that I'm the target audience basically for
Daniel Craig.
His Bond.
Yeah. Would you think it's unfair to say that he's the most British Bond we've had?
There's a scene in Casino Royale which is where I decided very quickly in Casino Royale, because this is early on, that I loved what they were doing with Bond, with Daniel Craig, and that's during the parkour chase. Parkour was very in when Casino Royale was being made. Every film had a parkour scene. Yeah. And they're chasing through this, they're running through this building that's being built, constructed. And the parkour guy leaps through a window at the top of a wall, like a slit window, and like leaps up and through it. It's like spectacular stunt. And then the camera cuts back to the wall, and Bond just charges through it like a rugby tackle, just smashes through the wall. And I was like, they're just Bond, because Bond is a battering ram. Right. That is what Bond is. He's not like a subtle spy. He's not like in fact in one of the films he's referred to as a blunt instrument. Yeah. And that's what
he's a thug. Yeah. I think the casting of Daniel Craig, he looks facially very British.
He looks like a bulldog.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. He looks British. He's got that sort of broad-shouldered. He's not like Brad Pitt. No. Do you know what I mean? He
looks like he's been in a few fights.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's very clever, I think.
I think the other thing that I love so much about Daniel Craig's Bond, and part of why I think he's my favourite Bond, is that it seems like he just hates his job. Yeah. Like he's there's so many scenes across the films that he's been in where it's almost like he's annoyed at the fact that there's like a terrorist doing something. He's like, oh, for God's sake! Like he doesn't enjoy, like Roger Moore. It's like he's a British gent on safari. And he's like, oh, I'm going around and I'm sleeping with all these women. And occasionally a ne'er-do-well does something and I'd give them a judo chop. Right? Sort them right out. And it's like a weird, like, colonial... Jolly good, like, thing going on. And, like, he's too... Like, I don't like Roger Moore because he's too suave and too, like...
Yeah, it's a cartoon, isn't it?
Yeah, like, especially towards the end, you know, where he's, like, dressing up as a clown. And wearing, like, a crocodile suit. And all that sort of thing, like it's ridiculous.
Right.
Whereas Daniel Craig is like, there are people doing bad things, and like it's almost like
once again it's come to me to solve.
I wish that I hadn't been born into this situation.
Right.
And I think I just really hope. I think the fifth film with Daniel Craig tie up the Blofeld story, the Madeline Swan story. And then Daniel Craig can leave.
Well, the assumption would be that you recreate on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and she.
That's what I think. Yeah,
it makes sense.
I think.
But then maybe it makes too much sense. Maybe too obvious.
Well, I don't know, but I mean, Spectre in particular, like with scenes like the train fight scene. Is like it's almost verging on sort of reimagination territory, isn't it?
Yeah, and even when he's exploring MI6 at the end, that reminded me a lot of Scaramouche's hideout at the end of Man with the Golden Gun. Yeah,
with the
waxworks.
Yeah, the shot of him shooting at Blofeld through the bulletproof glass.
Yeah,
that is like we were talking earlier. Could you name something that is from each? Link to each Bond film. In The World Is Not Enough, he does exactly the same thing with Renard. Right. Chases after Renard goes behind some bulletproof glass and Bond shoots him like in the head, but it hits the glass. Right. And then they have an exchange through the glass. Yeah. Which reminded me of it a lot. Basically, I really hope Craig, Mendes, Waltz return for the next Bond film and round it off. I think 25 is a good even number to leave it as well. And then, you know, they can do whatever they like. Maybe, you know, there's even talk, you know, supposedly that they might go back to the 1960s.
Well, and remake it from there.
Well, not as remake it, as in set Bond 26. Yeah. So, like, it's back in the Cold War and all that sort of thing.
That's clever. With Idris Elba in the helm.
Yeah. The first black spy or something. Yeah.
I mentioned earlier that I have some bad points. I'd like to give you a couple.
Sure.
So one is Andrew Scott's acting, which I thought was particularly pantomime.
Okay.
Like, oh, no, I'm doing everything good. I'm not a bad guy. It was, you know, he was hammed up.
Yeah, he was obviously a villain.
But to the point, and I think the delivery of his lines was a bit naff as well.
Okay.
Like he just seemed to be stressing the wrong word. I don't know, it just seemed a bit phoned in. Yeah. That's one thing. I think trying to sort of crowbar Q into the action was a bit like, well, I can see why they're doing it. It kind of, I think they're trying to do like a Simon Pegg and Mission Impossible thing. Right?
Yeah, well, I quite liked the expanded roles that M, Moneypenny, and Q got. Yeah. Like it did venture into Mission Impossible territory towards the end, like with the team all doing it. But I didn't mind that as such. I know what you mean though. Like Q is, you know, why did they send him out to?
Yeah. I mean, he has been in the field before. He usually shows up in a Hawaiian shirt with a rocket launcher. He's like, oh, you this on. But I think that they're obviously making as much as they can out of Ben Wishaw's but he's a very good actor. He's very compelling in the role. So they're just doing what they can with that. The final thing that I have a problem with is the fact that Bond is, I mean, despite the fact that you said, I agree that when he gets punished, you kind of feel it. There's never any threat to him. And I guess the foil to that is that you do care about Madeline Swan, for instance. So although you know Bond is never going to die, which is kind of like...
lessens the impact.
Yeah, and particularly the scene, when he's getting his head drilled, and Blofeld's like, oh, I'm going to drill your brain and this is going to do permanent damage to parts of your brain. There's no sort of impact. He's just, there's like, that hurt. But then
I guess so. Yeah.
There's no consequences to anything that happens to Bond.
But it's always been that way.
Yeah, I guess at your point, but then I guess I could say it's the Bourne era, but then that doesn't happen to Jason Bourne either. He doesn't carry injuries over to different films.
Yeah, no, I take your point. I think it's unrealistic to go into a Bond film expecting anything else.
Yeah, I know.
Like
I think it's the fact that
his armour is so thick because they obviously could never kill off Bond.
I know, but then there wasn't even like a second where he's like, I'm not sure my brain's working properly now.
So, like, alternatively, would you have had like Madeline Swan being tortured and Bond having to watch?
No, I think for that same scene, Blofeld says, I'm going to drill a part of your brain where you won't recognise any faces.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd have had it so that he drills him, Bond is flummoxed for a while, and then they escape, he grabs Madeline, they make a run to the chopper, and then in the chopper he says, how could I forget you?
Yeah, okay. What I would say about these bits of criticism is that I think if you're nitpicking to this extent, it shows that you enjoyed the film a great deal.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway. I mean, this is a podcast where we're supposed to tear it apart, right?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
And we will, by the way, everyone, I mean, you tuned in How to Survive Spectre. It's not going to work for James Bond because he survived the last 50 years. I don't think he's going to die off anytime soon.
Yeah.
So when we get to that, perhaps we'll be saying, and this is something to think about in the meantime, how could Bond better have survived? Or, alternatively, how could the other people around him survive?
How to be a better Bond.
How to be a better Bond or a better Bond villain, perhaps.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Bond generally.
Okay.
The series.
Yeah.
Highs and lows?
Highs? Well, we'll ignore the Craig era. We'll go back into...
Sure.
Brosnan peaked early.
GoldenEye, basically. Yeah. Downhill from there. Dalton? Any affection for Dalton films? No. Roger Moore?
Roger Moore, I like the early stuff. Again, it goes
downhill, doesn't it? Yeah.
Sean Connery, again, it's like you plateau, don't you?
Everyone loves Sean Connery, and actually I do too. I think he's my second favourite Bond.
After Craig.
A lot of the films are difficult to watch now.
With modern politics.
Yeah, because, like there's a lot's been said about the Goldfinger scene with Pussy Galore.
Right, yeah.
And a lot of the racial things. Like, obviously that's just a reflection of the writing.
Yeah.
And of the era. But, like, my highlights would be, like, The Spy Who Loved Me, I think. This tends to be sort of just, like, the ones that I had on video when I was growing up.
Or the ones that are on ITV on the Sunday.
Yeah. My favourite ones were always Spy Who Loved Me from Roger Moore era. It had the skiing bit at the start where he skis off the cliff.
Parachutes.
Which is amazing. And then GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Which I think is...
But is your affection for that coloured by the N64 game?
No, I don't think it is. I think it's... Because I've watched it recently as well. And I think it is... It's maybe like the top 3 Bond films.
For me, I don't think I've seen any Brosnans in the last 10 or more years.
Right.
I think Die Another Day soured the whole bunch.
Yeah.
But I've watched a lot of Connery in the last few weeks, just because I was hyped up for it.
Yeah.
I really liked. I mean, Goldfinger obviously goes without saying, it's an excellent film.
Yeah.
Dr. No, I quite liked it, but then Dr. No as a villain was like a bit naff.
Right.
I really liked From Russia with Love. I thought that was just a really, really good film.
Yeah.
Thunderball, the underwater fight scene goes on for about 45 minutes, and I couldn't. Can't
tell who's who.
Yeah, I was watching it with my mate, and I was like, "What? Can you explain to me what the purpose of this fight is?"
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like boring. What is your favourite Bond film?
I think it is Skyfall.
Really?
I think Skyfall is my favourite, followed by GoldenEye, followed by Spy Who Loved Me.
Okay.
And Spectre would probably be... It would easily walk into the top 10.
Yeah. Top 20.
Top 24.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about lows, I really don't like the later Roger Moore ones.
No,
because they're just so wacky and...
It's like they're thinking of ways to jump the shark.
Yeah. And then, like, A View to a Kill, he's like 60.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing for everyone who's involved. Die Another Day is one of the worst films I've ever seen.
It's
a mess. As is Quantum of Solace.
Yeah, it's like they're easily comparable because they're just so like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
I saw Die Another Day at the cinema, and I was a young boy.
Yeah.
And there can't have been any appeal in it because
I think
as a child you wouldn't be able to put together the very, very flaky script anyway.
But then I think as a child you ignore things like you go, oh, well, this is a Bond film. You know, there's a car chase. It's fine. Oh, it's taking place on a glacier. That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, there goes Bond. He's in an ice palace.
Yeah.
And he's using his invisible car to kill people. Oh, look, there's Bond. The glacier that he's on is melting with a giant space laser. So he will take the roof off of his Aston Martin and use that to windsurf on the tidal wave that's formed from the melting glacier to safety.
So I've got a list of all the Bonds.
Sure.
This is my own research, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
thank you.
That's all right. Pause for applause.
Yeah.
Of all the Bonds and their Rotten Tomato ratings for their films.
Okay.
And obviously Rotten Tomatoes is an unfair reflection of the general populace, but I think for Bond we could probably use it because, as we said, men between the ages of 12 and 40. So, which Bond do you think has, on average, of course the average of all their films, had the highest rating?
Probably Sean Connery?
No.
No?
It's Daniel Craig.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He had 95... Oh, this is pre-Spectre, sorry.
Okay.
So, 95 for Casino Royale, 65 for Quantum of Solace, and 92 for Skyfall.
Oh, he's got to be gutted about
I think,
Quantum of
as
Solace.
low as Spectre is 85, so it would still stand.
Okay.
Then you've got Sean Connery, 96 for Doctor No, amazingly. Then same for Russia with Love, same for Goldfinger. The worst was Never Say Never Again, which you'd expect.
Understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Roger Moore after that?
No. It's actually Timothy Dalton after that.
Wow.
Living Daylights, License to Kill, both 76.
Okay.
Then Brosnan.
Right.
Oh no, sorry, we missed out Lazenby, who was tied actually with Sean Connery. 82 for the one film.
Okay. Because George Lazenby, like, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, is possibly the best Bond film with the worst Bond. Yeah. Because it is great, and then the fact that it's a brilliant film gets lost in, George Lazenby sort of turning to the camera in the pre-title sequence. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, this never happened to the other guy. Right?
Yeah. Which is like toe curling.
That was after Sean Connery.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of short. I mean, I suspect it's good because it was a Sean Connery era Bond played by a different guy, right?
Yeah, that's probably...
That explains the consistency.
Yeah.
Last at the bottom of the pile, Pierce Brosnan. 82 for GoldenEye, 57 for Tomorrow Never Dies and Die Another Day, and strangely, The World Is Not Enough ranked last at 51.
Really?
Really.
I think The World Is Not Enough is underrated.
Yeah.
Although Denise Richards is terrible.
Right. And by the way, special mention, David Niven, who played
in the original Casino
Royale, 36, so not really worth much at the end of the day.
No. So before we went to see Spectre, we made some predictions to one another as to what we thought would happen in the film.
Correct.
And then we've scored them out of 5. We made 5 predictions each as to who knows Bond best.
Yeah. Who's the film student around here who can make predictions about what's going to happen?
So let's hear yours first, shall we?
Yes, please do.
So Joe's predictions were...
My predictions were that Ralph Fiennes, Ralph Fiennes, the way it's spelled, Ralph, his character M would turn out to be a member of Spectre.
Yeah, that was not the case.
No.
So that's not...
I believe I said that Blofeld would not be mentioned... Or that he may be mentioned by name but not be a character in the film.
I've got the exact statement was Blofeld will not feature as a character but may be referred to.
Well,
will not feature as a character.
Well...
He literally features as a character.
Okay.
You predicted that Mr. White would die.
Oh, yes.
So that's 1.
That's a point.
Yeah, that's fair. You predicted that Mr. Hinks would survive.
Well, we don't see him dead, that's what I say.
I think it's pretty cut and dry.
When he goes through the windscreen of his car, and like his finger twitched, and I remember looking to you with a big grin on my face.
Yeah.
And
then he got pulled out of a moving train at 80 miles an hour.
By his throat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your final prediction was Judi Dench will feature as either a flashback or a voiceover in Bond's head. Now, I would say this is a half point.
Okay.
A debatable one. It's on the cusp. Because she does appear in video form.
Yes.
She doesn't appear in a flashback or a voiceover in Bond's head. Unless you're going to argue that all videos are a form of flashback.
Well, in the opening title sequence...
there is that
kind of seems like the haunting of his psyche.
Are James Bond title sequences canon? Probably not.
Well, they were dreams, aren't they? That's what I think. He just thinks about naked women and guns. That's like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll give you 1.5 out of 5.
Okay,
is that
thanks.
fair?
You're generous, thanks.
Okay, my predictions were James Bond will straighten his tie/suit/cuffs just after killing Hinks. Which, it was so close. When the fight started and Bond was in his tuxedo, I was crossing my fingers that it was going to happen. He just didn't do it. Instead, he had sex.
Yeah.
Which is similar. Baron Samedi will be obliquely referred to through discussion of Skull-Faced Man.
So the Skull-Faced Man from the trailer, who it turned out to be James Bond.
Yeah.
Now,
I think it's implied that he's a villain. He's the villain that Bond's after in the opening sequence.
Yeah.
I've marked this as incorrect. I think the Baron Samedi stuff is the whole Day of the Dead thing. That is like 2,000 Baron Samedis. Yeah,
exactly. That you could call that the reference to Live and Let Die.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm gonna say no for that one.
Okay.
I'm gonna be harsh on myself. I predicted Andrew Scott's character will be a villain. Which is...
Well, that was obvious.
Cut and dry.
Yeah.
I predicted Oberhauser will survive.
Well,
this is debatable. This is debatable because Oberhauser technically doesn't...
the man Oberhauser...
The man we understood to be Oberhauser and was marketed as Oberhauser in the film was the character being played by Christoph Waltz.
Yes.
Right. He's then revealed... through the course of the film to be Blofeld, but I think I have to have the point.
But he does say the words himself. That man Oberhauser is dead.
Yeah.
But so by his own admission, he's a dead man, Chris.
Well...
From the horse's mouth.
Should we give it a half point?
Give it a half point.
Okay, my final one was Bond will pretend to go rogue in order to root out a traitor within MI6.
Well, no.
Well, he does go rogue. Does he or does he not go rogue?
No.
He does go rogue. He runs out.
That's not rogue. Is like Alex Trevelyan.
Wow.
He's a rogue agent. Literally, he's the rogue agent.
Yeah. But right, fine. So we both got 1.5 out of 5. Basically, we don't know Bond.
Right.
So it's that time of the show, as always. It's the How to Survive podcast, and we're going to be talking about How to Survive. It's probably going to be a shorter. Edition than usual, as we said earlier.
James Bond does indeed survive. As he survives. Yeah. But I mean, I guess in that sense, what we say could probably apply to most of the Bond canon, because Bond's ways of surviving don't differ that much.
No.
Yeah.
But Joe, have you got any suggestions for 007?
Yeah. Well, one would be to be more thorough when leaving the scene of a fight. So, here's a couple of examples. When he's escaping from the African compound as it's blowing up, a Blofeld's hideout, it's all going chaotic and blowing up. Yeah. And I remember as they fly away, I remember thinking that someone's going to give chase in that other helicopter. So what I'd have done is pulled out the control panel of the other helicopter, meaning that you've got a clean escape.
Okay.
So that's one way, and the other way, Mr. Hinks survived his
car crash.
Yeah. So you could check this breath. Oh, wait, I can feel. I'll just
put a bullet in him.
I'll scalp him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cut his head off.
So be more thorough. This is almost. You could almost say. Are you arguing then that the James Bond films are a sort of proto-slasher film, in the sense that the villain constantly comes back from the dead?
Yeah, I think so. It's this false dawn sort of
Mr. Hinks is the Jason substitute.
Yes,
basically.
But he does die. Maybe.
Well, don't see him die.
Yeah. There's no body. speaking of Mr. Hinks, this is very specific to him. Now, as you know, Dave Bautista was a wrestler.
Fan.
Yeah, I want to give you a couple of ways that he's been beaten in the past.
Okay.
That James Bond could have put to good use. So, at Extreme Rules, I think he was fighting John Cena, and it was a last man standing match, which means you have to be the last man standing.
Yeah, not dissimilar to him and Bond.
Yep.
Yeah.
So John Cena won this by duct taping Batista's legs to the ring post so that he couldn't stand up, and therefore he got counted out and lost, even though he wasn't unclear. So that's one way. Another way would be to this is from Over the Limit, perhaps the same year, maybe the year after. It was an I Quit match where the aim is to make your opponent say I quit. And Cena, again, carried Batista on his back, on his shoulders, on top of a car. And he was going to throw him from the top. And Batista said, no, don't do it, I quit. And he did it anyway. And then Batista quit WWE on the back of that because he fractured his spine. So,
oh dear.
Yeah, so that's how I'd beat him. I'd lift him onto my shoulders.
Okay, you've been doing your CrossFit. You reckon you're up to it?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, my advice to Bond: he's a spy. You'd think that this is part of the training, right? And this comes up throughout the film. Recon before entry. Okay, how many times in the film does he basically? And I do like this about Bond. He's got chutzpah and confidence, right? He just, like, for example, the Spectre meeting in Rome. He just walks in, bluffs his way in, right? No idea what's going on inside. Could just be 100 people with machine guns waiting for him. Just walks in, doesn't seek out a decent escape route, ahead of time. All these sorts of things with prior planning would have benefited him. It happens again in the desert base. They just turn up as like guests, and also in the MI6 building. But he does clock the netting, which he then uses to escape at the end. And the boat, in fact. Yeah. So by the end of the film, he's actually put into practice his recon skills ahead of time.
His like the thing he was trained to do probably on day one.
Situational awareness.
Yeah, that Jason Bourne would be proud of. One last thing is, when you're tied up, this is happening in Casino Royale.
Yeah.
And it happened in this one as well. When you're tied up, don't goad your would-be assassin.
Antagonise him.
Yeah. I can take a little drill to the brain. He's getting smacked in the balls with that knotted bit of rope.
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sake, man.
Just be polite.
Yeah, just be like, why don't we, like, Bonds of old were lucky because you don't
expect me to talk.
Yeah. You'd have Ulrich Goldfinger going on a rant for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Giving you time to escape. Not anymore. Now it's just get on with it.
Yeah. So you're saying don't put yourself in a position where you're like actively encouraging the person who wants to do you harm.
Yeah.
Just go like, listen, like, I know we've had our differences, brother, but I really loved and cherished our time together, and in some ways I think all the decisions that I've made since the day that you left my life have been a result of your what I thought was your death.
Yeah.
And in that respect, I hope that you can forgive me.
It's more relief that I'm saying that right now, because what I'm experiencing now is relief. The fact that you've got me tied up means that you're alive, and that or alternatively,
even though I'm not happy in the situation we're in right now, I just want you to know that I'm happy that you're alive and healthy and doing so well for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this place; it's wonderful.
Or keep saying like, I don't understand the plan. So what? You've been there all along?
Tell me again.
So you were in charge of Quantum? Yes, I was in charge. But what about?
Hang on, what's Quantum again?
So Quantum was what? The Mr. White? But Mr. White works for you.
So Mr. White was your boss?
But so Mr. White was the assassin, but he worked for Quantum. No, he owned Quantum.
Do that until until when? But your binds have rusted off. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So Spectre, Joe, overall a good film?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a good chance that most of our listeners probably haven't seen it even right now.
At the time of recording?
Yeah, the time of recording. It's 2 days it's been out.
Yeah.
And you're not going to hear this for 2 weeks. So unlucky. hopefully nothing's changed in that time.
Well, I hope the listener has seen it before they listen.
Because
So 2 weeks
we're at the end now.
Gives them enough headroom.
There's not much point to watching it.
Yeah. But I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
You thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes.
It's a great film. Go see it if you haven't. I mean, it's ruined for you now.
Yeah, exactly.
If you haven't seen it. See it again.
Yeah, I think you could watch it knowing what happens.
Yeah.
Because you know what's going to happen anyway. You know, Bond's going to win.
It's a Bond film. Yeah.
So next week we're doing The Martian, which was a really good film.
Yeah.
Actually, a really great film. Actually, an amazing. Actually, it might be the best film I've ever seen. Actually, it's not just the best film I've ever seen. It's the best film, book, the best media I've ever consumed. In fact, it's the best thing I've ever experienced. In fact, it's not just that. It justifies my existence on this earth. So look forward to that next week.
Yeah. We watched that and recorded that podcast a few weeks back.
Yes.
So has changed your life since, is it?
No.
All right.
That's one I've been... I mean, when you hear it, guys, next week, you're going to hear us say, we don't know when we're going to release this. So it's a surprise episode. But it turns out we do know. Now we know.
And if you'd like to get in touch, then do. The email address is howtosurviveshow@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Don't bother getting in touch about The Martian because we've already recorded that one. We're
Yeah.
going to go back and include your thoughts.
Yeah.
So...
and also visit our website, which is nearly finished. I mean, it's half done.
Yeah. It's howtosurviveshow.com. All the information, all of our old podcasts are all on there. So thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.
Hope you tune in again next week. And goodbye.
What's a good sign off?
Cuckoo.
Cuckoo.
Yeah.
No, I know. It must be better than that.
What? He says cuckoo in the fucking film.
But that's rubbish, mate. Why did he say it?
Why? Because he talks about cuckoos later on in the film.
Yeah, cuckoos, like they crop the animal out of the nest.
Yeah. I'm leaving all this in, by the way.
Well, no, fine. I think there's a better sign off we could do. And we're going to stay here until we think of it.
The name's... I don't know.
The name's show, How to Survive Show @gmail.com.
The
name's gmail.com. How to Survive Show @gmail.com.
Please don't unsubscribe because of that.